Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another session of our Friends with FieldView series of webinars. Today we are going to be hearing from our folks from DroneDeploy. We want to make sure that you know that the Friends with FieldView webinars are for informational purposes only, and Climate LLC has not vetted and does not endorse any claims made by third parties. You may have questions today as we go through the content. Be sure to pose those through the Q&A or the chat boxes. If you don't see those on your screen, utilize your controls at the bottom so that you can get those questions presented, and I will ask the panelists once we have time. Now that we have all of that taken care of, I'm going to turn things over to Scott Speck, a Climate Activation Manager, and he's going to get us rolling with some introductions for our panelists today.
Sounds good. Thank you. Well, hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our Friends of FieldView series today featuring DroneDeploy. The goal of our Friends of FieldView series is to provide you with some general awareness about the partners who are integrated with FieldView while also providing insight into their teams, products, and solutions. We are looking forward today from hearing from speaker Ethan Leonard from DroneDeploy, who is the solutions engineer working with the agriculture division, and then also on from the DroneDeploy team is Stephanie Medrano, who is the product marketing manager for the agriculture segment. If you don't know about them, DroneDeploy utilizes aerial drone technology to address the needs of agriculture through multiple different assessments, indexes, and reports. DroneDeploy users flying a drone can capture insights to identify variation in fields, the health of crops, environmental damage, treatment analysis, and many more opportunities that you'll see as Ethan goes throughout the presentation this morning, both by using visual detection and the data, and then all this information can also be paired with your Climate FieldView account. So please be sure to ask questions as we go along this afternoon, and thank you again for joining us. Now I'm going to pass it over to the DroneDeploy team to get things kicked off. Ethan and Stephanie, it is all yours.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you, Mindy, for setting this up. Happy to be here on behalf of DroneDeploy with the Climate FieldView team. Let's dive right in. We got about an hour here, so if you have any questions, just drop them in the chat and we'll get to them all at the end. We've got plenty of time, so don't feel shy. Drop your questions in the chat and we'll get to them at the end. So just a quick agenda for today. We just wrapped up introductions. I'll be talking to you about DroneDeploy. I'll be looking at our main use cases, some of our more interesting use cases, and then talking about how DroneDeploy and Climate FieldView integrate with each other. And finally, we'll wrap it up with questions for the last 15-20 minutes of the hour. So real quick, before we dive too deep, I wanted to discuss at a higher level what DroneDeploy's solution looks like in action. And it's really three different buckets, DroneDeploy being in the middle. We allow and we ingest the geospatial and visual data from many different sources, such as drones, 360 walkthrough cameras, cell phones, autonomous robots, and other geospatial data sets you may have. Those can all be uploaded and processed into the DroneDeploy platform, which allows you to do all of these cool verbs we see here in the middle, such as inspecting, annotating, reporting, all that fun stuff. And finally, our extensibility options allow for integrations and third-party applications to be natively built on our platform, such as many of your standard web-based file hosting services, as well as climate-specific apps such as FieldView and Agrimo. So I want to dive right into our two big use cases using drones in agriculture, and the first one is scouting. So one thing DroneDeploy has been focusing on a lot over these past few years is really giving the tools that growers need in the field. And one of the big improvements we've made is what we call live map, as we see here. It's the ability to fly and then create that map right on your cell phone or iPad, right at the field's edge with no internet connection required. So that's a break for how we previously used to process things. Again, right now, you can have your boots in the dirt, the drone in the sky, and build and stitch that drone map of your field right there on your iPad. It's really valuable. It allows you to get those field's edge insights in real time so you can scout it, you can go field truth your areas, and really get a lot more bang for your buck when you need to go out and scout your field. So let's dive a little deeper into our crop scouting tool. So here's a little screenshot of it in action. You see the blue lines is where the drone flies. This is all automatically flown for you, so there's really no flight experience required. The drone flies itself. You can input your field boundaries straight from Climate FieldView, and so the missions will even be planned for you. And when compared to traditional methods, it's about a 10x time reduction from traditional scouting. So let's compare the traditional scouting with DroneDeploy scouting. On the left here, we see an agronomist, a grower, checking out some beans. And what we know from our partners is scouting your fields can take hours and days. It's hard to find skilled labor to do this. It's a manual method. You're taking samples, areas, and you really don't know what's going on there at the field. You just know what you can see with your eyeballs. And we think there's a lot of loss of efficiency there, knowing that non-representatives, areas you've seen, and you're missing addressable issues, which could ultimately hurt your yield. We think the drone-based method is superior in almost every way. With DroneDeploy, you can fly a 100-acre field in 15 to 20 minutes. This requires no cell connection. And once the field has been flown, you can instantly see areas you need to go ground truth, areas that are not performing with low indicators of plant health. So let's look at what that looks like in a little more detail. We all see the green here, but what DroneDeploy can do is really take that up another notch. And we use what's called the VARY index, which is the visible atmospherically resistant index. This is available to be toggled on right there at the field's edge on your iPad. So you fly the field, it looks like what we see here on the left. It's green. You can't really delineate areas you need to go to. We turn on the VARY index, and what it does is measures the greenness of every RGB pixel. Again, this is with a standard camera. So think of your Phantom 4 Pros and your Mavic 2 Pros, just your off-the-shelf drones you can get at Best Buy. These are the kind of results we get with it. It has everything you need. Everything I'll be showing you today is just from your standard Phantom 4 Pro, your Mavic 2 Pro. The VARY index is incredibly powerful. By measuring the greenness of the pixels, we can instantly see areas that need to be ground truth, that have some sort of issue going on. We see here in the middle, here on the right. We can only kind of make those out on the non-VARY index map. So let's go one more click deeper and add in the DroneDeploy toolset. This is all available on your iPad, all offline. You're able to see the histogram of the VARY index from -1 to 1. You have slider bars here to create zones. And the toolbar allows you to, as you've seen here, drop georeference points on the map to go be ground truthed and to compare over time, as well as create area polygons to measure the exact area of issues in your field. Again, all offline, all on your iPad, right when the drone lands. So we think this is really the first step to make scouting way more efficient. The drone flies for 20 minutes while you're getting a cup of coffee sitting in your truck. The drone lands, you turn on your VARY plant health tool, and you instantly know where you need to go ground truth. You can walk out there, save yourself a lot of time wandering in fields. You know exactly where the issues are. 100% sample size, which is really what we all want. So if you have any questions on scouting, definitely drop them in the chat in the Q&A, and we'll get to those at the end. Now I want to dive into stand assessment, another tool DroneDeploy has been working hard on the past few years. Last year's growing season was our first year doing stand assessments. We co-developed that with a partner. And we've improved it dramatically with a year's worth of learning. We had about 50,000 stand assessments flown last year. We're hoping to add about 50% more onto that this year, given that we've improved our pipeline, our processing. And again, I want to say with stand assessments, the same caveats apply to the crop scouting. We've built it entirely offline. So we've taken the machine learning algorithm that does the stand assessments and built that into our app. So once you use DroneDeploy, you can automatically get stand assessments, no connection required. We think the same thing applies to stand counts as it does with Crop Scout. It's about 90% time reduction. And on the right here, you see the results of a stand assessment right on the iPad. Every single one of these points is where a super high resolution picture was taken. The machine learning algorithm ran locally, and we've identified your stand count. Let's look at that in a little more detail and compare it to traditional methods. I'm sure we're all too familiar. I know I was growing up with detasseling corn and doing stand assessments, walking through fields with clickers, doing sample areas, and really feel like I'm wasting my time out there. It takes hours, it takes days. You walk dozens of miles, and you're really only taking 1/1000th sample sizes and extrapolating those across the field. DroneDeploy's taken the accuracy, the efficiency, and brought it into the 21st century with our drone-based stand count. It's even faster than a Crop Scout. 15 minutes will get you 100 acres, all offline, and you'll have sample areas over the entire field, so you know where you're going to need to replant while you're in the field. Let's look at DroneDeploy in action on this. On the left here, we see the planning screen. We're doing the crop report. We see this is a 48-acre example mission, and it only takes 7 minutes to fly. So super fast. We've identified the crop. DroneDeploy stand count works with corn and soy. You can change your crop attributes such as male-female ratio, row spacing, and choose your grid coverage all the way from 1/10 of an acre up to 5 acres to fly very small areas and get lots of stand counts, or fly very large areas and take a sample size. The green line is where the drone will fly, and every green point is where it will take a stand count picture. We see the flight in action here. Let's look at the results. So once you hit start, just like Crop Scout, the drone flies along its path. The machine learning algorithm runs, identifies the count at each point, and gives you a result. The picture on the right is what you can click on every single point and see the actual image that the stand count was performed on. So everything can be verified. The orange parallel lines are the rows the machine learning algorithm found. Within every row, there's a red plus sign on every single positively identified corn plant that's emerged between the V2, V3 growth stage. And then the yellow rectangles are the gap. It's where it did not find a plant and it expected to find a plant. And so that's exactly how the stand count function works. Counts them all. Where one's missing, it notifies that with a yellow rectangle. So easy to verify, easy to see what the machine learning is doing, all transparent to you guys. A really good thing about stand counts is we've made an automatically created PDF report you can download and share via email, via text. Get this to your agronomists, get this to your seed reps, let them know how the emergence went, and really start making those decisions that are going to impact your final yield. Whether to plant, whether to replant or not, whether to just save and focus elsewhere. This is a good example of the data you get back. You see your map, your population, histogram, your median population, your spacing, and your plant gaps. Really cool feature. Again, we did about 50,000 last year. We've improved it dramatically, and we're excited to see what's going to happen this growing season. This works for corn and soy. For next year, we're looking at a few other crops. More news on that hopefully later this year. So if you have any questions on stand count and crop scouting, drop them in the chat and we'll get to them at the end. Right now, I want to dive into some other use cases. This is some more fun stuff. Cool thing about DroneDeploy is we're verticalized. And so we develop tools for lots of other industries such as construction, mining, energy, utilities. And so we've got a lot of cool tools that are really useful for agriculture. One of the big ones that's pretty simple is what we've seen, and this is for our agriculture vertical, is 10% of all flights are now multimedia flights. So think just progress pictures, think videos, and most importantly, think these 360 panorama drone shots that we see a lot of agronomists, a lot of farmers using to really capture their field in about 5 minutes. And you've got this bird's eye view to pan around, to zoom in, and really see your field in context. Again, all of these are super easy to share. You can share your DroneDeploy projects, all your flights and your data with your agronomist, your seed rep, your co-op. We make it very easy to share everything you've flown and uploaded to DroneDeploy. Another feature we have is our count tool. What we see here are blue diamond almonds in California. And we've got a machine learning algorithm that'll run and count nice evenly spaced trees as we see here. And then you can manually add in the gaps. And this is just a quick example of Blue Diamond who counts and manages their orchards. They have 854 trees just in a really small section of their farm here. And they fly this over time and see which trees have died, where they need to replant. This is their matter of record for their growth. Again, just another tool on the DroneDeploy toolbar. We've got a few customers that are mostly growers and farmers that have full homesteads. They use this to count their cows. They'll fly it, they'll drop pins on their cows and keep track of them that way. Another really important tool that's very useful for if you have irrigated, pivot irrigated fields, if you've got drain tile to install, if you've got irrigation, you need to figure out every single flight in DroneDeploy. When it's uploaded, we're going to create an elevation map for you. This is incredibly accurate. We've got customers we've got mining, we've got construction, grading work done off of DroneDeploy's elevation models. We see it as a runoff analysis for agriculture. We see this field here. We can't really see what's going on. When you're out there, can't really see what's going on. Fly a drone over 20 minutes. You know exactly where you're draining. You know where your high spots are in red, where your blue spots are in low. It allows you to plan and even remediate and see the changes in elevation during the off season through your remediation. A lot of powerful tools here. Another cool feature is another aspect of DroneDeploy is not only do we build you that elevation model when you upload to DroneDeploy, we also build a 3D model of everything that's uploaded. So there's no fancy settings needed to do, no fancy uploads. You upload your pictures from the drone and we'll build you that 3D model. What we see here are some rock bins. I'm sure y'all have some rock bins or you know someone who does. And they do last a while, but they do need to be inspected. They do need maintenance. They do need an eye on them. And these are some pretty big ones and some pretty serious grain elevators. On the left here, we see the top-down view. which is what you would normally fly a field, and it doesn't give us a whole lot of information. But DroneDeploy allows for vertical flights now, as I'm sure a few of you guys know. You fly a flight over top, you fly a vertical flight on all 4 sides, upload all those images together to DroneDeploy, and we're going to give you an incredibly accurate, incredibly detailed 3D model. This is used to inspect the bins, and the level of detail is incredible. You can tag issues here, share them with your contractors. You don't have to get a cherry picker out there. You don't have to get any rappelling teams out there. Super easy, fly a drone. And I took a picture. This is the level of detail you can get. And my corny joke is, does this bolt look rusty? Because the resolution is that good. You can inspect the bolts on the top of your Brock bins from your computer. Lots of tools here. Again, these tools we're seeing were built and used by the construction industry, the facilities industry to inspect building facades, to inspect skyscrapers. Works great for grain bins. Another really good use case with drone imagery is to instantly quantify your weather events. Here we see what's clearly a tornado path through a cornfield. On the ground, you really don't know what's going on. You know a tornado blew through, and the house is down here. You'll see it in just a sec. No one was injured during this on this field. I do know that. You can use the same vari index that we looked at earlier and instantly map out and know exactly what type of and where your crops were damaged from any wind event, whether this is a derecho, a hailstorm, heavy winds, up to a tornado. We can identify green snap real easily. And once you've flown this mission, there's the house, safe and sound. Again, the toolbar is your best friend. Right after the tornado blew through, I can fly my field and let my insurance adjuster know. The tornado covered 3,080 feet across my property, and it destroyed 19.85 acres of my crops. And so that's going to make insurance easier. Let's look and zoom in a little more detail. On the left, you can see in detail the corn plants that have been destroyed. Turn on that plant health tool, and we can easily quantify the areas that are dead, damaged, that will not be growing. One last joke, quantify green snap in a snap. Another feature that's trickled over from the construction and mining industries are our DroneDeploy's drone-based volumetrics. So we saw earlier those Brock bins from a flight. These work great for silage, haylage, rylage piles, whether they're stored in bunkers, whether they're in ag bags. DroneDeploy's volumetric analysis from just a simple flight from a standard Mavic 2 Phantom 4 drone is all you need to get survey grade within 2% of laser survey grade accuracy, your volumetrics of any of your stockpiles you may have. We've got lots of customers using this. Super easy tools, no special licenses, no special hardware required. You can identify the area, the total volume. If you know the density of your material, you can identify the mass and even apply value to see how much feed you have left, how long it's going to last, what the mass is, and what type of inventory you've got stored. Not only can you measure the silage volumes, you can confirm those in full 3D cutouts, and then even create customized PDF reports to share with your suppliers. And everything we've seen today so far has been captured with a standard camera on a standard drone. DroneDeploy does support multispectral processing for those of you doing research plots. needing to know the chlorophyll levels, if you're going to be writing custom nitrogen prescriptions, multispectral cameras are great. We support most of the main cameras for processing, including ones from MicaSense like the Red Edge and the Ultim, DJI's Phantom 4 Multispectral, the Parrot Sequoia, the range of slant range cameras, and even the really good Centera cameras. So all those data sets can be uploaded and processed into maps inside DroneDeploy, and we've got plenty of compatible filter types and algorithms to create those detailed plant health maps with your multispectral sensors, and write those custom prescriptions, write those variable rate prescriptions with our grid and our zone functionality. And we can go into more detail here. That's another conversation for another day. But everything we've seen so far has not used multispectral. All right, if you have any questions on the use cases I just went over, drop them in the chat and we'll get to them at the end. I want to talk a little bit about the Climate FieldView integration. We've been working with the Climate FieldView team for a few years now, as well as the Bayer team. And we've had some pretty cool synergies between the two software programs. It manifests itself in two ways. The first way I touched on earlier, where if you've got your field boundaries in Climate FieldView, you can easily import those right into DroneDeploy, right as a mission plan. So if you've got your field boundaries, you choose your field in DroneDeploy, and we'll create that mission plan for you. It's great if you got a lot of fields, or if you don't want to mess around with flight planning too much. We'll go into a little more detail in just a second. The second main integration point is at the back end. Once you've flown the field and you've processed the maps in DroneDeploy, you can easily export the orthomosaic map, which is just what it looks like from the sky. That plant health map I've been showing you that really has a lot of good information, and that elevation map I showed you. All three of these can be imported right into Climate FieldView, and it becomes just another data layer in your app, much more high resolution than the satellite level analysis you're going to get. Super important for writing those variable rate prescriptions. We'll look into a little bit of more detail on that in just a second. But this works to where if you need up-to-date, high-resolution data sets within FieldView, we make it super easy to get that in DroneDeploy and get that right into FieldView. So here's an example of adding a flight, choosing Climate FieldView's app in DroneDeploy, loading all the fields, selecting your field, Davis Field, click import, and boom, the flight plan was made. I wish I could pause this GIF to show you. It's moving pretty fast, but it's super easy. It takes about 10 seconds, and bam, your flight's ready to fly. Other one is the drone maps in FieldView I mentioned. We see here, this is a very simple variable rate where we're creating two zones from DroneDeploy plant health imagery, just your standard RGB, specifying the in rate right in Climate FieldView and getting your prescription up and running in these two zones. But we know you're going to be much more detailed with your zones in Climate FieldView. What's the point of doing variable rate prescription if you can't get detailed? DroneDeploy allows you to be, as high of resolution as you need, up to less than a centimeter per pixel. So what we think is that using DroneDeploy and the Climate FieldView ecosystem, really what creates is a field playbook that allows you to use both these tools synergistically throughout the growing season. On the left here, we see some nice planting maps with the different variables in planting. And on the right, we see a DroneDeploy stand count. So it's easy to plant your fields and then right at the V2 stage, understand what your emergence was. So you can instantly verify that the plan you've started is still in effect and make those decisions as soon as possible whether to replant, and what your crop additive process is going to look like in the growing season. So right off the bat, beginning of the season, there's already really great tools you can use between the two apps. And it just gets better as the season progresses. So what we see at DroneDeploy is lots of our customers have to wait until they get their yield maps at the end of the season to validate the products they've put on the field. And as we know, when you have to wait until the end of the season, many other variables come into play. Most importantly, weather. You can have poor emergence in one area, use crop additives to remediate that, and then your crop gets destroyed by a weather event, and that was all for nothing. You don't know if the products worked. Yield maps are not reliable for product validation. What we see in DroneDeploy using these plant health tools is to be able to fly before product application and fly a bit afterwards. This was 30 days after, and you can compare the plant health side by side with our slider here to really understand and create multiple methods of data to prove that the products you're using, or to hold your seed reps accountable, the products that they're offering you, make sure they're working, make sure they're effective in the field. So we think this is a really powerful tool to get your product validation and your yield understood throughout the growing season, so you can make better decisions during the season and not wait for lessons learned after the season. So let's take that again one more click deeper. The FieldView app allows you to kind of close the loop here, where you're creating these variable rate prescriptions based upon DroneDeploy's plant health data. You're seeing the field before the prescription. You're applying the variable rate custom prescription from FieldView with the drone data. You're flying afterwards to verify, and you're seeing the results at the end of the season in the yield map. This is the process a lot of our agronomy customers use throughout the season, whether they've got spray drones or other sources. This is the future of farming. It's understanding your field holistically and at the same time at a very detailed level, and being able to control the variables which will increase your yield given the reality that we live in today. So we see this as a holistic workflow. DroneDeploy allows you to manage your infrastructure, monitor your fields, improve relationships using offline field data capture, that field's edge analysis through scouting and stand counts, and then making the right recommendations and performing the right actions. And everything is two-way syncable with your main integrations such as Climate, FieldView, Agrimo, and your cloud storage provider of choice. All right. So that wraps up what I wanted to talk about today. Looks like we're good. 9:35. Definitely want to open this up to any questions. Happy to answer for the next 15, 20 minutes.
Thank you, Ethan. You know, I can't help but note how far you've come from your corn detasseling days to now a solutions engineer with DroneDeploy and helping bring a lot of high tech to farms and agriculture. So just a little personal note, congratulations on your success.
Thank you. I never could have dreamed this when I was sitting in the field being sliced to a million ribbons by 12-foot tall corn plants trying to detassel them. So it's good to be here.
Well, undoubtedly that on-farm experience has helped you bring usable tools to the industry. So that experience was not for nothing, right?
Absolutely. When when you're in there, you understand the inefficiencies of these farming practices, and being able to see the efficiencies that technology can afford us, just in these past few years. Lots of these drone deploy solutions are just a few years old. We're just getting started as far as developing tools for farmers, growers, and agronomists. And so I'm really excited to see, what the next few years look like when we're adding features, adding crop types, and really seeing how far we can push data-driven precision farming.
Absolutely. So let's talk about some of these questions that our listeners and viewers are sending in. The first one has to do with just that, the drones that work with stand assessment, and specifically, they want to know if the Mavic 3 is one of those.
Great question. So right now, DroneDeploy is going to recommend the Mavic 2 Pro and the Phantom 4 Pro. The Mavic 3 just came out like a month ago. It's a really, really awesome drone, but excuse me, we have to wait until DJI releases their software development kit for the Mavic 3. And so that's not coming until this fall. And so DroneDeploy has to wait until the SDK is released by DJI, and then we'll be able to start our development and make DroneDeploy compatible with the Mavic 3. So that's coming. You probably won't be able to use it with DroneDeploy until late this year or by next growing season, 2023. So we're beholden to the SDK to get DroneDeploy to talk to the drone, and that won't be ready until this fall.
Great, so, perfect insight there. That's great for listeners to know. So there are other drone companies out there that farmers and agronomists are using. What sets DroneDeploy apart from those other groups?
Great question, Mindy. Thank you from the audience. That's a good one. So DroneDeploy, and you can hopefully talk to people that have used it, is by far the easiest to use drone software. We've developed workflows we call end-to-end, where you can go from no data to actionable insights from that data, all within the DroneDeploy platform. And it's easy. We don't give you too many options to choose the wrong option. So the flight plans are automatically flown. The data upload is just uploading your pictures like you'd upload to Google Drive. Super easy. We process everything always, so you automatically get your 3D model, your elevation maps, your plant health maps, no special processing needed. And that brings me to my second point that sets DroneDeploy apart. It's the fact that we've got the map engine. We've got the scalable map engine, the cloud-based map engine. It's our own. We do 2 million flights a year on it. It's cloud-based, so DroneDeploy is really easy to use from that regard, in the sense that we're infinitely scalable. So you're going to get the great results just for one flight, or 100 gigabytes of a giant field. So it works for everyone, and it's easy to use. And I think that's what sets us apart. Everything we showed here today is using your very inexpensive off-the-shelf drones. Our software is easy to use. And so this just makes adopting this data-driven mindset for your crop management really easy, and creates a really low bar to get started.
That's awesome. Along those lines, where is DroneDeploy available? Is it globally? Is it only in the US, Canada? Where are you guys available?
Everywhere, or almost everywhere, without getting geopolitical. Everywhere we're allowed to be, for good reason, we are available. So obviously no active war zones, not North Korea, but we've got flights in over 200 countries, and we're available anywhere. The app market is available for iPhone and Android.
That's great. Here's another question from a listener that they are flying several fields with DroneDeploy, and my customers all have FieldView. How can I share my population and plant health data with their FieldView account? Do they have to share their fields with me? Is that the best way to share those DroneDeploy maps to the farmer?
Great question. I think I see that here from Shane. So you can definitely import to FieldView the DroneDeploy maps. You will have to connect your user account that the map is hosted on to your Climate FieldView connection. So it really is a one-to-one. So your fields in DroneDeploy can be uploaded to your instance in Climate FieldView right now. So I don't want to tell you to share passwords, but there are other ways to do it. You can upload imagery to FieldView, and so you can do it manually. And that also is a really good avenue for our development. If that's something you guys want, if that's something you guys need, you have to let us know, and we will see if we can build it for you. That seems pretty simple. But right now, it'll need to be the same login on both instances of software.
Perfect. Along those same lines, Ethan, do stand assessments, pins, and regions that are created in DroneDeploy, do those flow over to FieldView?
Not right now. Right now, it's just the standard orthomosaics, the elevation maps, and the plant health maps. Most of those tools are going to be, most of those layers of tools are going to be best used in the Climate FieldView app if you're using Climate FieldView. So right now, it's just those imagery data sets. We do have a full open API and SDK. So if someone wants to build the ability to bring that stuff in and share with people, that is certainly a possibility.
Excellent. I'm going to throw this next question to Scott because it's more of a FieldView question, and this is related to the dealer tools for climate, Scott. So can we use the dealer climate account for multiple growers to put customer maps in, or does it have to be each individual account?
Sure, definitely. So with your dealer portal account, any customer or FieldView account that shares with you, as long as you're establishing that sharing connection, you're able to work together on things like those field boundaries. When you do connect those accounts, though, like Ethan had mentioned, that account permission does need to be accepted by the user who's going to actually have those maps in their account. So if you were going to send some boundaries into the DroneDeploy software from FieldView, that would need to come from the customer account and log in there. That's just part of our privacy policy as our customers do own their data. They're the ones that are in control and are able to turn on that access if they'd like to. The other thing I wanted to mention quick too on the reports and stand counts, one thing that I've seen some users do with like DroneDeploy stand counts, for example, is you can always take a screenshot of any report and attach that to a pin or a region inside of FieldView. That way you could locate that location, drop a pin, add that picture of the screenshot of the report, and then share that report directly with your customer as well that way. So a couple different ways of being able to see that data, even though it's not directly syncing across, you could still see that report inside of a FieldView account if you attach that as an image.
Great insight, Scott. We appreciate those little best practices that you get to see in the field. A couple other questions here, folks, but we do have time for more questions. If you have anything pondering on your mind, get those sent in, and we'll get those asked to Ethan and Scott. So if folks are looking to implement DroneDeploy, Ethan, what is the approximate cost to get started to use DroneDeploy? And if a customer has a drone, does DroneDeploy offer packages?
Great question, Mindy. So I'm not a salesperson, so I'm not talking from a lot of experience, but generally speaking, for a single user to use DroneDeploy, and almost all the features we showed here today, we've created what we call the Ag Lite package, and that's $100 a month for all of the features, almost all the features we looked at today. There is another level, the individual Pro package, that might have a few more features that's a little more expensive. But think your standard off-the-shelf drones with $100 a month in software, and you're ready to start flying unlimited fields and doing all the plant health analysis, all the stand counts for $100 a month. So DroneDeploy is platform-based, so it's unlimited access to maps, all the processing, all the flights.
Excellent. And as individuals are getting started, what kind of a support team is there to help folks get to using DroneDeploy?
Great question. So if you're part of an enterprise level license on DroneDeploy, you're going to have full access to customer success, dedicated customer success managers. You're going to have access to me, a solutions engineer. I support most of our big accounts. If you're an individual, we've got a fully staffed up support line that's double staffed during stand count season to make sure that we've got chats within DroneDeploy. So if you have a question in the field, you can open up a chat window and talk to someone right there. And you can also email support@dronedeploy.com. We get plenty of questions, and we're definitely happy to help you maximize the usage of DroneDeploy.
Excellent. So I don't see any more questions right now, folks. Kind of last call here for any questions that you might have. I'm going to go ahead and send things over to Scott to kind of summarize today's session. But we thank you for joining us, Scott.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Mindy, and thanks, Ethan, from the DroneDeploy team for presenting. I think that was a great explanation and an awesome demo for us. Learn more about DroneDeploy on our climate.com/partners page, as well as insight into the integration guide, as well as how to connect for users of FieldView and DroneDeploy. And also feel free to contact their team with any questions related to the DroneDeploy solutions. As always, if there's anything that we can help with on Climate FieldView, please reach out to your local FieldView team or to our customer experience team. Be sure to also check out our climate.com/events page for all future webinars, as we do have some pre-planting webinars coming up here at the end of the month. Thank you again, and thanks for joining. Have a great rest of the week. We appreciate you jumping on.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Mindy.
Great job, Ethan.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Thank you. Great job.